And this is Houston Newsmakers EXTRA. We're talking with Bishop James Dixon, the president of the Houston NAACP. We're talking with Dina Marks, senior associate director of the ADL Southwest, and Justin Robinson, who is the president and CEO of the Houston Area Urban League. We're talking about all the different things that come into play as it relates to the violence that led to the Buffalo murders of those black citizens in that community. Politics is playing such a big role in all of this, and all of the political folk are listening to who they want to listen to. That makes the challenge even that much bigger, does it not, to try to get through to people to say, do the, quote, right thing, when they believe, many of them, that the right thing is what somebody is spewing to them about doing?
Well, white supremacy is a doctrine, and I think we need to discuss it that way. It's a doctrine, and the doctrine of white supremacy produces extremists. So you cannot have the doctrine of white supremacy being promulgated in pulpits and by elected officials in their rhetoric without expecting to produce extremists.
In pulpits, you say?
Yes, of course. Think about it. I mean, extremist, evangelical, right-wing jargon often lifts white supremacy under the guise of American freedom. And we've not dealt with that, which is why I think we have such silence when it comes to egregious acts like this. It's that kind of false narrative that creates fear, that drives extremists to commit these kinds of actions that kill. That is a result. It's not just a coincidence. It's a result of something, and people are going to have to take ownership for their roles in it. I
know the ADL, the Urban League, the NAACP are meeting on a national level as well. What are your hopes that will come out of that conversation? Because obviously if you're talking to the Attorney General Garland and trying to get a conversation going about extremism, we've had those conversations before. Those conversations have happened throughout our years, and nothing has changed, really. So I'm an eternal optimist too, by the way. So that doesn't change. So I know.
Really? It didn't sound like it. Okay.
But nothing has changed, and so what can be done, do you think, that can help change the dynamic of what's going on?
Well, Justin was saying earlier that we need to discuss this. That's the first step, to discuss it and make a plan. ADL is calling for, along with organizations like the NAACP and the National Urban League, we're calling for a national summit on violent extremism and white supremacy and how to address it and how to combat it. We're asking President Biden to call that summit. And I imagine that's what the NAACP and ADL are talking to Merrick Garland about today. So I'm hopeful that that's going to happen. One thing we haven't addressed, though, that we also need to address is more policing of media, social media, and media, because, we have Tucker Carlson, who's been talking about the Great Replacement Theory on and on and on. Suddenly he doesn't know what the Great Replacement Theory is. We need to, first of all, police social media. The suspected gunman in Buffalo live streamed what he was doing on Twitch, which is a gaming platform owned by Amazon, by the way. He posted a bunch of information on Discord ahead of time about what he was going to do. We need to get these platforms to police themselves better. In this country, we certainly have the First Amendment and free speech. It's a difficult thing to do, but with freedom comes responsibility.
And that's going to be a challenge, too, because those companies, they say that freedom of, quote, speech, and how do you limit it? We've heard that We've heard that about all of these things, where we can't limit their speech, just like you can't limit the guns. We hear that speech all the time. But that whole process going on, laws are being passed that prohibit the teaching of certain kinds of history in our country. That's what's happening right now. Right. Urban League, you are out there telling people, hey, this is what happened, this is what we're going to do. Talk a little bit about the kinds of things that Urban League does that kind of works to try to negate some of these negative things that come out of that.
Right. Well, Kimbrel, as you know, we started the Center for Social Justice. It's truly an education-based effort to make sure that people understand how laws work, which divisions of law affect your life, be it the county or the city or the state or the federal government, how to get involved in the process of change, and how to run for office. We had a nice session on that last week. How to ensure that you're an effective part of the system of change. And again, that's what we're trying to do with our discussions with our young people, making sure that they're having dialogue, understand how to plug into each other's networks, how to build coalitions, and effectuate change. Because there has been progress. but the great majority of us sometimes believe that there hasn't because of the noise out there. It took, up until maybe a month ago that lynching was outlawed in America.
Just in March.
So I mean, the wheels of justice take a while sometimes, right? But if we don't get involved and engaged, they will not change.
And that's very dismaying to me. And Judson and I were talking about this yesterday because our parents worked together and worked so hard to effectuate change and to have change happen. And to see us step backwards like this, you asked about what our first response was. Mine was despair and deflation, because what our parents worked so hard to achieve and what we're trying to continue their legacy, seems to have fallen back.
Because this program airs on Sunday, there are people who'll be going to church to try to get some sort of solace, some sort of direction. What do you tell your congregation and others who will listen who believe in a God about what happened this past week and how to get through this?
Well, certainly God comforts and meets us in our crisis, but God does not vote. God does not go to the polls.
That's right.
God does not spread hate rhetoric. Right. This is coming out of the mouth of human beings. This is human agency. We've got a responsibility here. And if the pastors in churches really want to effect change, go to your pulpit and call this what it is. And don't just deal with the fruit, deal with the root. The Extremist Act was the fruit. The root is hate rhetoric, racist rhetoric. It's the great replacement theory. It's the extremism that's been promulgated on airways across our nation every day, 24 hours a day, that has produced a religion called white supremacy. That's a doctrine that is promulgated by people who have influence. Every family, are you raising a racist? Are you raising a person who might turn out to be an 18-year-old who will kill 10 blacks because they're black and feel that they've done their religious duty? You've got to answer that question as a mother, as a father. That's how we change America. That's how we change our communities.
That's a mic drop.
Yep.
Thank you.
We need not even add anything to that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time. Dina, Judson, thank you so much. This is Houston Newsmakers Extra. This is a week you really need to share this with everybody you know.